All right, so we're sitting here now in the engine compartment of our T72M. The engine's out now, so it gives us a perfect opportunity to see just how complicated this piece of kit can be. Being a Russian tank, it's very complicated. 2 transmissions, 1 big engine, multiple ways of starting it. So you have an electrical start generator, you have a tow start unit, you have an air start unit on the engine itself. But just looking in here, the complexity of it is far and above a lot of the other vehicles that we've worked on before. Just the idea of having 2 transmissions just doesn't make sense to me, but it overcomplicates it. It's taken us months to work through this. We wanted to make sure that we were taking one step at a time because we have no experience taking an engine of this nature out. So we wanted to make sure all our hoses were categorized. We were able to document all the stuff we were disconnecting, so when it comes down to the point where we can reconnect it, it's going to make our job a little easier. But it does give us an opportunity to take a look around. So I'm just going to point a couple of things out. I'm not going to go into any great detail here, but the engine sits on the cradle, which I'm standing on right here. It's a shimmed pack. So behind me, I've got the engine shims that the engine sits on. Not all the hulls are square, so they generally shim the engine on the mounts to sit there and align it with the transfer case, which is this here, which they call the guitar in their manuals. But it shares designs with English vehicles. A lot of the older English vehicles also have shim packs. Unlike the Leopard just sits on its own cradle, sits right into the hull on its 4 feet, and it's a lot different, a lot simpler than this design. This is a little bit more complicated, but it does the trick. So when we look around, your engine is going to sit right here. It's going to basically fill this void. With the engine out, you can kind of see the inside where you have some additional storage for the ammunition. Off to the sides here, we have an extra fuel cell for a crew heater. The air compressor for the whole tank would be right here, and that provides the air for starting. Builds up the air in the system, so keeps it all full. And you don't really require battery power to start it unless you want to. So if you were going to start it electrically, you'd be starting it through this component here, which is the electrical starter. Operates on 48 volts. Across from that, you have another air unit over here that's used for tow starting. Off the top of the transfer case, you have the fan drive unit that goes to a bevel box that supplies your cooling fan that's at the rear. Now there's lines, hydraulic lines, cooling lines, oil lines all over this thing. It's just filled to the brim with stuff. So once you take the pack off, or the deck off the back end, it's just jammed all in there. So you have to actually work your way down. Big air filter would sit here in this hole. So when you look at the stuff, fairly complicated. One of the only tanks that I know that has 2 transmissions. Now, I don't know why they have 2 transmissions, but you actually have a transmission per track. So you have a transmission on each side, controlled by a hydraulic mechanism box on the top. So your tiller bars input signals into those mech boxes, which control the transmissions. The transmissions are hydraulic. So when you pull your tiller bar, it causes the hydraulic flow to change the transmission and engages the clutch depending on what gear you're in. So if you're in 2nd gear and above, you pull your tiller bar back, your mechanism box says, hey, I need to turn, so I want to slow down the track. So it actually downshifts the transmission to a lower gear. Let's say I'm running down the field in 3rd gear. I pull my right tiller bar to turn right. The right transmission is going to downshift into 2nd. So it'll slow the track down and the other track will overspeed it. When you're in lower gears, you're working essentially with track braking. But again, fairly complicated. Not a lot of detail, I understand. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to be looking at the pictures and say, oh my God, what's this, what's this, what's that? At a later date, we're going to try and get more information. I've got color photos of this whole engine compartment that lays out every piece of equipment. It would probably take me 2 hours to sit here and go through one of those drawings. Very informative, very good. We will have answers to questions if they're posed, so go ahead and ask your questions. The only other thing that I can really point out is where the engine would connect, and that's this piece right here, which is the input to the transfer case. And we're going to look at the engine shortly, and you'll be able to see what the engine looks like when it's out.